Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable member from Kelowna Lake Country.
The Prime Minister tried to distract Canadians with a sudden 2-month temporary tax trick. The NDP Liberals have doubled housing costs, doubled food bank use, and doubled the debt. And in just a few months, the NDP Liberals plan to raise taxes on all the very same items they claim they're giving Canadians a tax break on. Common sense Conservatives will axe the carbon tax on everything for everyone forever and take the GST off new homes sold to stimulate home building and save families money. Will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It seems that the Conservative member has invented a new slogan to oppose what is a tax break for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure I understand the Conservative position on this. In fact, what we are doing is lowering taxes for Canadians so that they could keep more money in their pockets, Mr. Speaker, and yet the Conservatives are opposing it. Interesting. The Conservative leader actually called this a trick. Well, actually, I think what we're seeing is that the Conservative leader is trying to be the Grinch that stole the holidays, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, the NDP Liberal coalition is back. Remember when the NDP leader said, Liberals are too weak, too selfish, too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people. He should win an acting award. He announced his confidence again in the Liberal Prime Minister, and together they'll continue their plan of quadrupling the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. Here's a common sense solution. Axe the carbon tax on everything for everyone forever. Cheaper gas, groceries, and home heating, and everything that's shipped. Will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we just announced a tax break for Canadians. In fact, Canadians will see that they are not going to be paying federal taxes on everyday items like takeout food, Mr. Speaker, like beer, like wine, children's toys, children's clothes, Mr. Speaker. And you know what also came out? BMO and many others are significantly revising their growth forecasts for Canada in the next few months, Mr. Speaker. This is good for our small businesses. This is good for our economy. It's good for Canadians. I guess it's just bad for Conservatives.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, after 9 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians cannot afford to even feed themselves. And Food Banks Canada reports 2 million visits in 1 month. The 2024 report card on child and family poverty in Canada showed the largest jump in child poverty on record. Food prices rose 36% faster in Canada than the U.S., a gap that opened after the Liberal NDP carbon tax. Axe the carbon tax on everything for everyone forever. Cheaper gas, groceries, and home heating, and everything that's shipped. Will the Prime Minister just call a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
You know, Mr. Speaker, it never ceases to amaze me that the Conservatives don't really seem to understand and vote against every measure that we have taken to help Canadian families, whether it's the Canada Child Benefit, whether it is $10 a day childcare across this country, whether it is the tax GST holiday that we just announced yesterday, Mr. Speaker. We are there for Canadians. We invest in them each and every day. I'd like to know why the Conservatives continue to vote against Canadians, vote against the things they need, whether it's pharmacare, dental care, anything else. We are here for Canadians and will continue to fight for them.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, my grandson's diapers may cost less over the holidays, but he'll be paying it until his dying day. This inflationary spending comes on top of $500 billion of deficits from the Bloc-supported Liberals. Mr. Speaker, what are the Liberals going to buy us next? A refrigerator? When will the Liberals restore Canadians' purchasing power, stop playing politics, and axe the carbon tax? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are proposing austerity. They are opposed to helping vulnerable children, and they are opposing our school lunch program. They are opposed to investing in housing construction. They want to tear up the agreement we signed with Quebec. Conservatives are even opposed to a tax break. They are opposed to our tax to give a tax holiday to hardworking Canadians. This plan is good for the economy. It's good for Canadians. I guess it's not good for Conservatives. The honourable member for Lévis-Lobinière, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have found another way to benefit their friends, their little besties. They can wine and dine them thanks to a GST tax break on wine, beer, and alcohol, while middle-class families can barely pay for their heating, gas, and groceries. Mr. Speaker, when will this Prime Minister do the right thing and give real relief to Canadians? By calling an election! The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I can't believe it, Mr. Speaker. Conservatives always put a party first and country last. Now Conservatives are opposed to a plan that will make life more affordable for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Canadians have had a hard time lately. We want to give them a tax break. How can the Conservatives oppose something like this? The honourable member for Saint Jean. Donald Trump's deportation plan has already had an effect. Radio-Canada shows that in Ontario, immigration lawyers and advocacy organizations are getting calls from Americans and asylum seekers who want to cross the border. I will quote the director of one temporary housing organization. We anticipate a similar increase to the one we had in 2016-2017. The article went on to note that as of Monday, the federal government had reserved rooms in 11 Ontario hotels. Is this really the government's plan? Go back to another Roxham Road? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Crocodile tears from the Bloc, Mr. Speaker. Back in April, the Bloc opposed our asylum seeker reform, and they opposed what we proposed in the budget. This is ridiculous. If they really were worried about the situation, they would support our plan to reform the asylum system. The honourable member for Saint Jean. The immigration minister was quoted in the Radio-Canada report. He said he supported temporary housing for asylum seekers as well as hotel rooms. Let us be eminently clear. When we ask for action from the federal government to head off a wave of migration, we want them to increase the amount of people staffing the borders. We want them to support the RCMP and the CBSA. We are not asking for them to reserve hotel rooms, and we are certainly not asking for another Roxham Road. We will have been clear. Will the government show us a clear plan? The Honourable Immigration Minister. How naive. The Bloc has asked for a plan. Well, we have a plan, one we signed with the United States, one that has existed for a long time, the Safe Third Country Agreement. It works. Certainly, it had to be renegotiated, so that's exactly what we did. We have dealt with a number of presidential administrations. We are able to work with the United States, and we do not have to shirk our principles. The Honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Back on their grocery list and struggling to pay for essentials, but the Liberals' new plan misses the mark. Seniors and people with disabilities struggling to make ends meet won't be getting the $250 check to help pay their bills at this difficult time. Well, Conservatives always want to cut people's pensions. Liberals are letting people on fixed incomes down yet again. Why are Liberals excluding seniors and people with disabilities from the real help they need this holiday season? Why won't Liberals help them too?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance.
All Canadians are going to benefit from the tax break that the Liberal government is offering, Mr. Speaker. I thank the NDP for their support for this measure, and I think that every single Canadian will feel the difference when they're at the cash register, when they're paying for their groceries, Mr. Speaker, when they're buying their Christmas presents, Mr. Speaker, especially when they're looking to buy children's clothing, Mr. Speaker. We know that Canadian families have had challenging times, and we're helping them with a tax break.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, over the past 2 weeks, 4 unhoused Edmontonians were found dead in a bus shelter. Homeward Trust says that there are over 4,000 people in Edmonton who are unhoused. Neither the UCP nor the Liberals have invested enough in shelter space or housing. Winter has arrived in Edmonton, and this is an emergency, or more people will die. When will the minister realize that Danielle Smith is not going to help and that federal funding needs to go directly to the organizations that will save lives in Edmonton this winter?
Here, here. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
All levels of government, Mr. Speaker, have a solemn responsibility to respond to the scourge that is homelessness. That's why this federal government has responded to the issue, in fact, by putting forward, among other things, $250 million for encampment response, something that the government of Alberta recently matched, Mr. Speaker, or is committed to matching. That means people out of camps and into homes. That's on top of 87,000 people being taken off the street as a result of the Reaching Home program, this government's signature response to homelessness that the Conservatives have committed to cut, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, Canadians are falling far behind. This government has dragged our economic performance down to just 2/3 of the United States. This is costing Canadians on everything that they buy, and paychecks have not kept up with the inflation this government has caused. A recession is defined as 2 quarters of negative economic growth. Canada has seen per capita declines in 8 of the last 9 quarters. This is failure. Will the Liberals call an election so Conservatives can start to fix Canada's budget?
Here, here. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the things that my honourable colleague forgot to mention was that Canada has sustained a AAA credit rating and the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7, and has repeatedly seen inflation decreasing to 1.6% in September. My honourable colleague mentioned GDP per capita. I take the point. We will continue to examine our economic supports, including making sure we have a tax-free holiday for Canadians, Mr. Speaker, including we have money back in cash for workers.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, even a Prime Minister that doesn't think much about monetary policy told us this past May, as soon as you send people extra money, inflation goes up by that amount. So the government is now proposing to increase inflation and punch our deficit and debt higher. That's like a pyromaniac dressing up like a firefighter. The most inflationary tax is the carbon tax. Will the Liberals call a carbon tax election so Conservatives can start to fix Canada's budget?
Here, here. Well. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Actually, on this side of the House, what we believe is that investing in people, investing in your economy, leads to greater economic growth. And that's why Canada leads the G7 in terms of net debt to GDP ratio. That's why independent credit rating agencies have said that we should maintain our AAA credit rating. And that's why Canadians have elected us numerous times, defeating many leaders of the official opposition. So I say, Mr. Speaker, let's make sure we continue to support Canadians, and this time with a tax-free holiday.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon University.
Well, folks, the NDP Liberal coalition is back. Did they ever really break up? I don't think so. Remember when the NDP leader said the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people? Well, he just announced that he has confidence in the Liberal Prime Minister until February of 2025. I wonder what happens then. Canadians can't afford this. Now they're trying to bribe you with your own money with a sudden 2-month temporary tax trick. But Canadians won't be fooled. Here's a common sense solution. Axe the carbon tax on everything, for everyone, forever. Will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election today?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's only one thing that Conservatives hate more than Canada's economy doing well, And it's Liberals putting real and tangible affordability measures to this House of Commons that really help support Canadians. We've done that time and time again. And what did the Conservatives do? They opposed. When we proposed to do a middle-class tax cut way back in 2015, it was one of the first things this government did. They opposed it. And today they're opposing a GST break for the holidays. How cruel can the Conservative Party be?
The honourable member for Saskatoon University.
They've been ripping off Canadians for the last 9 years, and Canadians won't be tricked by this most recent trickery. Food prices have risen 36% faster in Canada than the States. Now we have over $2 million people using the food banks every month. In Saskatchewan, food bank use is up over 42%. Now they're promising a temporary 2-month tax trick. Here's the little solution for these guys. You know what you got to do? Axe the tax. And that's all that we're calling for, the carbon tax to be axed. Will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election today?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
It's interesting that every time they talk about climate change, Mr. Speaker, they never talk about the cost to Canadians of climate impacts. Record level, just for this year, in the months of July and August, $7 billion in climate cost to Canadians, Mr. Speaker, which makes it the most costliest year ever on record. And what's their solution? Let the planet burn. The Leader of the Opposition has voted 400 times. The Conservative Leader of the Opposition has voted 400 times against clean air, clean water, clean environment for Canadian communities. Not on this side of the House. We will be here to support Canadians and to fight climate change.
Once again, I'm encouraging all members please not to take the floor unless recognized by the chair. The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Smilkameen Nicola.
The NDP leader once declared the Liberals were too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people. Yet today, he's singing a different tune, backing a plan to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. With food bank visits hitting 2 million in a single month and a quarter of Canadians living in poverty, how many more Canadians need to choose between heating and eating before this Prime Minister realizes his carbon tax coalition is simply a recipe for disaster?
Here, here.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, what it's a recipe for is supporting Canadians during a difficult time, tax-free on essential goods, diapers, clothes, essentials, groceries, prepared foods. Canadians are going to have support from our government through the holidays. That is, if the Conservatives could decide to actually support Canadians rather than filibustering, being obstructionists, and making sure they're playing their own partisan games. How can they claim to speak for Canadians when they can't even speak for themselves in this caucus?
Yes, exactly.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Smilkameen Nicola.
You can't make this up, Mr. Speaker. They're saying a PlayStation 5 is an essential good. Jeez, with 30% of food banks running out of food and 35% of Canadians feeling worse off financially, this government's appetite for a higher carbon tax seems to be the only thing that's well fed. Now, is the Prime Minister so desperate to cling to power he's resorting to tax tricks, sending people's pennies while he crushes Canadians every April 1st with moving towards a 61 cent a litre carbon tax? When will the Prime Minister realize his carbon tax coalition isn't just running on empty, it's running on fumes?
Here, here.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Crusading against tax cuts over the holidays. Merry Christmas from the Conservative Party of Canada. Let me tell you the reaction about the constituents in Etobicoke Lakeshore who I represent. They are very excited and very grateful. Let me tell you about the small business owners throughout the city of Toronto who are very grateful for this opportunity because it's going to help their businesses and get them through the holidays. They need to support this and stop the nonsense, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, Canada is number 5 in the world, the 5th worst country in the world for tax evasion by major corporations and the ultra-wealthy, according to the Tax Justice Network. Canada is worse than Bermuda, worse than the major Swiss banks. Every year, the federal government vanishes $15 billion through tricksy accounting. Despite this, the federal government say that fair pensions for seniors is too high a price to pay. Are they not at least a little bit ashamed? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
There are over 60,000 employees with the CRA. There are massive strategies that are being worked on with international partners to ensure that tax avoidance and tax evasion are being prevented. I look forward to working with all members in this House to make sure that we are providing the right amount of support to the CRA to ensure that we are working on this very important issue. Tax fairness is a pillar of our democracy, and we need to ensure that that continues to happen. Thank you.
The honourable member for Joliette. That's not what is borne out by the facts. Canada was the 12th worst tax haven in the world. Under this Liberal NDP government, it has become number 5. What is worse, Canada is one of the 8 holdouts blocking the United Nations collaboration framework to fight tax havens. So Canada is not only rising through the ranks, it wants to stay on top. The federal government has turned a blind eye to $15 billion worth of tax evasion, but they are fighting not to give Quebec $50 million to deal with homelessness with winter approaching. Is this truly a left-wing government? The Honourable Minister for Seniors and Labour, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of homelessness, we invited the Quebec government to invest alongside us to fight homelessness in our cities and towns all throughout Quebec. I hope that the Quebec government will accept the government's open hand so that together we can fight homelessness. As for tax evasion, Mr. Speaker, the Canadian government has invested major sums of money in this. The Canada Revenue Agency is constantly working to fight tax evasion, and we will continue to fight tax evasion.
Member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister's desperate temporary tax trick proves he will do anything to save his own skin and tank the Canadian economy at no matter the cost. Economist Trevor Toombs says this won't address the economic challenges we face, and by doing this, the government invites valid critiques that it's not taking these issues seriously. But the leader of the NDP will keep them in power and permanently quadruple the carbon tax again. Conservatives will axe a tax on everything for everyone. Will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election now? Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
Mr. Speaker, what we know about Conservatives is that they will cut. On this side of the House, we invest. Just now we announced Ontario will be able to feed nearly 1 million students, 75% of the province's schools as of today, Mr. Speaker. Every child in Canada deserves a chance at a good, healthy life, nutritious meals, and a good start to the day on their education. We're investing $1 billion over 5 years in our kids to provide nutritious meals. That's 400,000 children across this country who have a better start to their day. That's what matters, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents don't believe anything from that side, and neither do most Canadians. No. Tovey from Langdon writes me, as owners of a small trucking business in Alberta, every time the Liberal carbon tax goes up, our fuel goes up, and we have to charge more. If the Liberal NDP can't understand that taxing people that grow the food, transport the food, makes the food more expensive, will a common sense Conservatives explain it to them in a carbon tax election now? There. Well done.
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fascinating that it seems that the Conservative Party are listening to economists. Well, let's listen to what economists are saying. More than 300 of them have said that the best way to fight climate change is to put a price on pollution. Interestingly enough, one of those 300 economists is the economist he just quoted, Trevor Toombs, who has said on multiple occasions that the best way to fight climate change is to put a price on pollution. This is exactly what we're doing, and we're returning more money in the pockets of Canadians in the process. They want to take that away from Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Kootenay, Columbia.
Mr. Speaker, well, the NDP Liberal coalition is back. I am sure you remember when the leader of the NDP said the Liberals are weak, selfish, too beholden to corporate interests to fight for the people. Today, the NDP leader announced his confidence with the Liberals. NDP Liberal coalition will continue in quadrupling the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. All this while the Cranbrook Food Bank is struggling with food supply coming up to the holiday season. There's an enormous increase in people, resulting in handing out 1 bag instead of 3 bags of groceries. The Conservatives will axe the carbon tax. Will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
I can hardly believe that the Conservatives are talking about food insecurity, especially today, Mr. Speaker. Right. Today, we just announced a deal with Ontario to bring the National Food School program to thousands of children in Ontario who are going to benefit. This is going to ensure that kids have a good start to their day. This is going to help vulnerable families. This is going to be a huge difference for Canadians, Mr. Speaker, and the Conservatives are against helping vulnerable kids. Can you believe it? I can't.
The Honourable Member from Sturgeon River, the Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government is scrapping the iconic Royal Canadian Navy March, Heart of Oak, the song of our Navy for over 100 years. No one is asking for this change except these out-of-touch Liberal elites. Meanwhile, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, the Canadian Forces lacks the subs, ships, and sailors needed to fulfill its mission. Instead of going woke, this government should keep our military from going broke. It's time for these Liberals to put their new heart of woke away and focus on the real priorities. When will they get our sailors the equipment that they need to defend our country and our values?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has the largest coastline, and in the world for that matter, and certainly protecting that coastline is critical. Unlike what happened with the Conservatives in the past, where they cut supports for our Army Navy and the supports for our servicemen on the front lines, we are increasing. At the same time, we're looking at replacing the Victoria-class submarine, which is scheduled to depart in 2030. Meanwhile, we're continuing to look at requests for information to seek renewals of the fleet. Mr. Speaker, we're continuing to support our forces. We're continuing to support Canadian security.
Right on. The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
What is happening in Gaza is horrific. Canadians have watched in shock as death tolls mount. People are starved to death and hospitals are being bombed. They need justice now. The International Criminal Court recently issued a warrant for Prime Minister Netanyahu, former Minister Gallant, and Hamas leader Deif. It's time for a government that is clear and unequivocal, because this one has let people down before on international justice and human rights. How can we trust that the Liberals will enforce the ICC rulings and arrest warrants?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, our government respects the independence of the International Criminal Court. There's no equivalency between Hamas and Israel. But let me be clear, all parties must abide by international law. We also know that an immediate ceasefire is urgently needed. Hostages must be released. Hamas must lay down its arms. More aid must get into Gaza. The violence must stop. And Mr. Speaker, I find it really disturbing that on an issue as important and serious as this, that I'm being heckled by the Conservative Party of Canada.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay, Alberta.
Mr. Speaker, people who live near Union Bay on Vancouver Island have been telling this government for years, stop allowing the unsafe shipbreaking of massive ships. Now there's a hydraulic oil spill. What do the Liberals do? They issued a warning that doesn't stop anything. This jeopardizes this sensitive ecosystem, which includes half of all of BC's shellfish. The Liberals have let people down, and First Nations and local governments are frustrated at the lack of action and enforcement from this government. Warnings simply aren't enough. Why are the Liberals refusing to do anything about this?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for his question. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans take this issue very seriously. We are working with all involved parties to find a solution as rapidly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bonavista Burin Trinity.
Canadians just received good news to kick off the festive season, Mr. Speaker. A tax break for Canadians will put more money in their pockets at a time when they need it most. Inflation and interest rates are coming down, but my constituents aren't feeling that in their pocketbooks yet. So can the Minister please share with this House what this new tax break will mean for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The past few years have been challenging.
for hardworking Canadians, and they deserve a break, and we're delivering on it. So we're putting money back in Canadians' pockets with the GST, HST exemption for 2 months all across the country on groceries, kids' clothing, diapers, books, and more. We are helping folks with the cost of living, and while the Conservative leader opposes tax relief for workers, and he would cut services that folks rely on every day. The question is, Mr. Speaker, will Conservative MPs stand up and support tax breaks for Canadians, or will they stay muzzled by their leader?
The honourable member for Stormont Dundas South Glengarry.
Millions of dollars in fraud, the other Randy still in hiding, numerous lawsuits, business addresses connected to cocaine trafficking being held in contempt of Parliament. What a few weeks for the disgraced former minister from Edmonton Centre. After he arrogantly lectured other members in this House about their morals and integrity when it comes to their identity, his resignation from cabinet this week is what I call karma. And yet, as the Liberals lecture others on reconciliation, it was Jody Wilson-Raybould who called their actions shameful and extremely destructive. If the Liberals had any integrity left themselves, not only should he resign from cabinet, why hasn't he been booted from the Liberal caucus itself?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the House Leader indicated yesterday, we have been very clear in the House that the company was not on the list and that Indigenous procurement is for Indigenous groups. And what we do to see day after day is a gross amount of exaggeration coming from the Conservative ranks. And if they really want to start to do something in terms of what's in Canadians' best interest, they need to look in the mirror, and I'm referring to the Leader of the Conservative Party in particular, Mr. Speaker, and start asking himself the question, what is it that he is hiding that's preventing him from getting the security clearance, Mr. Speaker? Canadians have a right to know. He's hiding something. What is it?
The honourable member for Stormont Dundas South Glengarry.
They are still defending him. How unethical do you have to be to get the boot out of the Liberal Party of Canada these days? It is crazy. He says he's Indigenous. He's not. He says he isn't the other Randy working at his company. He is. His company isn't supposed to get contracts from the government. It did. And now his business is under multiple criminal investigations, and they share a mailbox with a cocaine trafficker. Yet the Prime Minister just said on Tuesday, quote, he's happy that he's continuing to lead on issues. He's got issues, all right. The question again is, he should not only just not be in cabinet, he should not be in the Liberal caucus itself. Have some integrity and give him the boot.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, really, talk about unethical. How unethical is it for the Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada to be the only leader not to get the security clearance, Mr. Speaker? Yet we know allegations of interference, foreign interference in his own leadership. We know that there are issues in which the Leader of the Conservative Party should be aware of, but he turns a blind eye to Canadians. Out of pure self-interest, he refuses to get the security clearance. What is it in his past? There is something there that he is not sharing with Canadians. What is it? Why won't he get that security clearance, Mr. Speaker?
The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, mired in allegations of fraud and conflict and having faked an Indigenous identity, this week the Liberal member for Edmonton Centre resigned from cabinet in disgrace. Also this week, the Edmonton Police confirmed that they have launched a criminal investigation into the ex-minister's company for fraud. So, in the face of an active police investigation, why is it that the minister's company continues to be green-lighted by these Liberals to bid on federal contracts? Why?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, that question has already been answered. You know, interesting enough, we have a Conservative caucus that has guidelines and criteria. If you want to be a summer intern, they actually have to get a security clearance, Mr. Speaker. That is such an incredible thing to believe, given that the Leader of the Conservative Party believes that he can put his self-interest ahead of the safety and concerns that Canadians have. It does beg the question, and I'll repeat it again for those that don't understand. What is it in the Leader of the Conservative Party's background? What is it that's preventing him from getting the security clearance?
The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal member for Edmonton Centre's company is under police investigation. This is a company that has been ordered by Alberta courts to pay back $8 million to clients for ripping them off. This is a company that fraudulently represented itself as Indigenous-owned in a disgusting attempt to steal government contracts from real Indigenous businesses. This isn't complicated. All the Liberals need to do is put the company on a blacklist. Why won't they?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'll share with any member a Conservative tweet that went out, and get this, listen very closely. Apply for a CPC summer internship today and be the future of the Conservative Party. Mind you, you have to get a security clearance. The question is, Mr. Speaker, maybe the Leader of the Conservative Party should apply for an internship program, thereby obligating him to get a security clearance, Mr. Speaker. That's how ridiculous this issue really is. Why won't the Leader of the Conservative Party today commit to get a security clearance? That is putting Canadians ahead of himself, Mr. Speaker.
Order, please. Order. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Taxpayers have been robbed of over $100 million this year due to an epidemic of fraud at Canada Revenue Agency. But the last thing the Liberals want is for anyone to talk about it. Wednesday in committee, the minister threatened her own officials that if they keep talking to the media about CRA's problems, they could go to jail. Her priority isn't nabbing fraudsters, it's nabbing reporters' sources. Does the minister realize that fraudsters are the ones who should be threatened with jail, not whistleblowers and not officials? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Fraud very, very seriously. Now, with respect to what the member has talked about, we have supported whistleblower rights as shown in our support of that member's caucus bill, C-290, which aims to increase protections for whistleblowers. But we need to find the right balance when it comes to making sure that Canadians' data is protected while also ensuring the rights for whistleblowers. The CRA has an internal process for reporting, and we look forward to continuing to work with all members in this House and the CRA to strengthen that process.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Without whistleblowers, we never would have known CRA was defrauded of more than $100 million. We never would have known 62,000 taxpayers had their personal information stolen. We never would have known CRA was aware of security flaws for a whole year. It was only when reporters started looking into the problem that the minister did too. So instead of threatening whistleblowers, shouldn't we be thanking them?
Secretary to the Minister of National Revenue.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Have the highest respect for whistleblowers and support legislation, private members bill C-290 put forward by that member's caucus to protect whistleblowers. But again, we have to ensure that Canadians' data is protected. We have to make sure that tax avoidance, tax filing, it carries the bear of fairness within our country and within the system. And we look forward to continuing to work together to strengthen that. And I look forward to working with that member for his ideas as well. Thanks, Chair.
The Honourable Member for Kenora.
Well, it's another day and another Liberal scandal, Mr. Speaker, this time centred around the member from Edmonton Centre, including the member falsely identifying himself as Indigenous to try and qualify his business for government funds. But somehow, up until the point of the member's resignation from Cabinet, the Prime Minister maintained full support for him. Jody Wilson-Raybould, who was removed from the Liberal benches for speaking the truth, described the Prime Minister's inaction as, quote, shameful and destructive. Mr. Speaker, this begs the question why this government is so quick to remove an Indigenous woman for speaking the truth and so quick to support a fake Indigenous man who misled Canadians.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it seems the only times the Conservatives want to talk about Indigenous issues in the House when it fits their cut agenda. While they attack the Indigenous procurement strategy, the facts are, under the Harper government, less than 1% of procurement was going to Indigenous business. With Our government, we've raised that to more than 6%. On this side of the House, we're going to stay committed to economic reconciliation moving forward.
The honourable member for Kenora.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, none of that answers the question at hand that I raised. Again, Jody Wilson-Raybould, a former Liberal minister, stated that a Prime Minister committed to true reconciliation would have removed the member from Edmonton Centre from Cabinet long ago, but instead the Prime Minister chose to stand side by side with that member. And as Wilson-Raybould put it, we get to watch white people play Ancestry Wheel of Fortune. So again, Mr. Speaker, I ask, why is the government so quick to remove an Indigenous woman for speaking the truth and so quick to protect a fake Indigenous man who misled Canadians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, Indigenous communities have fought for decades to enshrine their ability to determine their own citizenship and membership. Under UNDRIP, Article 33 is entrenched in law, which confirms the right of Indigenous people to determine who is a member of their community. However, the Conservatives have a different idea. They want to tell Indigenous people who is eligible and who isn't. No First Nation leader, no Métis leader, no Inuit leader is asking for the Conservative Party of Canada to determine who is eligible for Indigenous identity moving forward.
The honourable member for Yellowhead.
This government has thrown Jasper's recovery into chaos. The hand-picked minister from Edmonton, tasked with leading the effort, has resigned in disgrace after numerous scandals. The town is left without federal assistance in its time of need. Meanwhile, the radical environment minister ignored years of warnings, failed forest management, and let a third of Jasper be destroyed. Will the Prime Minister really put the same radical environment minister who let Jasper burn now in charge of its recovery?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, for 5 consecutive years, the Harper government cut funding for fire prevention in Jasper by $30 million per year, Mr. Speaker. $30 million per year. I'd be happy to table the documents in this House if they don't want to believe it. We've been there for Jasper. We've invested more than $60 million. We're ready to do more to help Jasper with reconstruction. Unlike the Conservative Party of Canada, we will not let Jasper down.
Order, please.
Please do not take the floor unless recognized by the chair.
The honourable member for Ottawa-Vanier. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives shed crocodile tears when it comes to talking about affordability for families. But when it comes to doing something to help all Canadians, they're missing in action. This government introduced $10 a day childcare, a national school meals program, and dental care, all of which the Conservatives don't support. But we can and must do more. Can the member for Outremont tell the House how the government is supporting Canadians this holiday season? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. I'd like to thank my colleague, the member for Ottawa-Vanier, who always defends her constituents. Mr. Speaker, it's true, the Conservatives are once again opposing a tax cut. This tax cut takes the form of a tax holiday on the GST. This will give Canadians a bit of breathing room and will enable them to keep a bit more money in their pockets. It's good for the economy. It's good for Canadians. It's the only ones it's not good for is the Conservatives.
The
honourable member for Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this government, crime is the only thing that's thriving. Canada is being hit by an unprecedented wave of car thefts. In Montreal, a victim of 2 car thefts now has to pay more than $7,000 a year for insurance. Quebec has set a new record with over 1,213 vehicles intercepted at the Port of Montreal. Mr. Speaker, when will this Liberal government finally do something to stop the crime and protect Canadians and their property?
The Honourable
The Honourable
Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we have been working with all orders of government and making investments specifically dealing with auto thefts, whether that's more technology like scanners and investments at CBSA. What I find ironic is that the Conservatives actually asked that question. We have been working at Public Safety Committee on an auto theft report with very real recommendations that the Conservatives are actually blocking. So, Mr. Speaker, if the Conservatives are serious about dealing with auto theft, perhaps they'll want to let us deal with that report.
The honourable member for Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' soft-on-crime policies have plunged Canada into chaos. Thousands of vehicles are still getting stolen and exported, while the Liberal government does nothing to restore orders. Canadians are paying exorbitant insurance premiums and worrying about the safety of their property and families. Can this Liberal government stop twiddling its thumbs and finally take the safety of Canadians seriously?
Minister for Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've mentioned, we've made significant investments, including investments at CBSA, investments in technology, investments with our police forces. The Public Safety Committee also did incredible work to look at ways that we can help support Canadians, just like the member opposite was trying to reiterate. But what happens in committee, Mr. Speaker, is that we do the work to put forward proposals to help support Canadians that they speak of, and Conservatives block that work because they would rather criticize than actually produce results that have impacts for Canadians.
The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Liberal Bill C-83 allows Durang, a serial killer, Paul Bernardo, to be transferred out of maximum security prison, and Liberal policy allows child killer Terry Lynn McClintic to have access to children through a mother-child program. This is shameful. The Liberals' soft on heinous killer policies are devastating to the victims' families. Will the government immediately reverse these policies?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, what is truly disgusting in this place is, number one, that policy and that program has been in place since 2001. But Conservatives feel the need to bring it forward now as some sort of political weapon to bring up victims. Mr. Speaker, the mother-child program is done with a rigorous protocol ensuring the protection of children at all costs. And Mr. Speaker, within facilities there are strict measures to ensure that only those who have been approved for this program would ever come near that facility. It is.
Order. 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 Colleagues. Colleagues. This is where we get into trouble every time that we speak out of turn. I'm going to ask the honourable member to please withdraw that word that was used, which was clearly unparliamentary. Thank the honourable member. L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Lac Saint-Louis.
And being able to take some time to spend with family and loved ones is a joyful opportunity for all. But for some, this time of year also means tough choices on what we can purchase and how much we can spend. Can the government tell this House what it is doing to make sure all Canadians and their families can better make ends meet this year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry.
Canadians work hard for their money and for their families, and they deserve a break. That is why this Christmas we will be giving Canadians a break on GST for many of the goods Canadians purchase over the holidays, like toys, kids' clothes, prepared foods, and even Christmas trees, so they can focus on the things that matter most to them. On this side of the House, we're focused on making the holiday season more merry and bright, while on that side, Conservatives can't get out from under their Grinch-like leader who can't find it in his petty little heart to give his caucus the freedom to do their job and stand up for Canadians.
The honourable member from South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling right now. Costs are up, rents are up, food prices are soaring. The Liberals have disappointed Canadians, while the Conservatives are threatening cuts. Now the Liberals are set to reveal a multi-billion-dollar surplus in the public service pension plan. New Democrats want to see this surplus used to help workers now. So will the Liberals keep disappointing, or will they use the surplus to help Canadians? Good question. Absolutely.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, in terms of helping Canadians, we are entering a period of a tax-free holiday for Canadians. But on the subject of my colleague's question, our public service is comprised of hardworking Canadians, the very best in the world, Mr. Speaker. Very soon, I will table 3 actuarial reports on the public service pension plan. I will have more to say about any potential surplus and next steps at that time, and I look forward to engaging with my honourable colleague on that very topic. Thank you.
Good answer. Just as a warning to all members to be very mindful of the microphones that are on your desks and making sure that papers don't rub them. It's very difficult on the tools which our interpreters use to do their work, of course, their ears. The Honourable Member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, the turmoil at IRCC continues. I have an Australian-trained doctor stuck in the department's quagmire. We have badly needed skilled tradespeople who want to come to Canada lost in the logjam, yet no delays in getting citizenship for ISIS terrorists who produce videos dismembering victims. Same with human traffickers needing a court-banned passport replaced. Mr. Speaker, what are the twisted priorities of the immigration minister? Can you focus on letting people into our country who want to heal Canadians, not to kill or traffic them, and to build the homes instead of blowing them up?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know why we give this guy the time of day. We drummed this guy out of our party because he covered up allegations of sexual assault against him and was fined by the military by it. He's so bad the Conservatives don't even want him in his party. And he was so afraid of the Green Party leader, he's now sitting over there. He knows precisely the answer to those questions. His office has never brought a single case to me. They're lazy, they don't get anything done, and he just does this for his social media, Mr. Speaker.
Order. It is very important. It is order, please. It is very important that all members are extended the courtesy and the respect that is owed to all members who sit in this place. I will, if necessary, come back to this House as I would review this matter. Colleagues, I wish to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset. Je désire informer la Chambre.
I would like to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset.
Affaires courantes ordinaires.
Daily routine of business, tabling of documents.
Carried to the, excuse me, yes, the Honourable Government House.